actually recording it, I should probably get a mic.
Oh, yes.
We're out of mics, so
that's
just
fine.
try to speak well. Sorry.
So I actually don't hate this opportunity. I love open source. In fact, do I need to not walk around?
No, you're fine, as long as you're inside of the screen. Yeah, the lights should be on now.
So for the last 5 years, which sounds like a really, really long time, and it has been, I've built a business based on open source technologies. And if it weren't the fact that I was actually leaving the Utah Asterisk Users Group, has anybody ever heard of that? They met twice, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't enough interest. But it was on the way home from that my brother and I, we literally pulled over the car and said, you know what? There's money to be made here. We can do this, right? We can take this technology that's open source and do something innovative with it and make money. And so we decided right there and then to start our business. And so I finished up, we are recording, so I have to be careful what I'm saying, a job that I might have been on my way out of anyway. And he was finishing up a commitment with a company he really liked working for. And in 2008, we bit the bullet. And we started a company. The company is named Izeni. It still exists under that name, but in a totally different form. You're glad you're in this session, not that session. Pterodactyls are eating.
They were doing goats.
Is that what that is? Okay. So anyway, we started out with this idea that we were going to build a communications platform, right? And if you've heard of Twilio, raise your hand. So Twilio is, they've successfully built and delivered what we wanted to do. And I don't think we didn't know how difficult that would be. And we sought out somebody, you know, we had like a lot of ties in the technology world and a lot of familiarity with, you know, the open source tools that we could use, but we were pretty inexperienced, right? So one of the people who's speaking at LaunchUp is Josh Coates, right? So I went and talked to Josh Coates. Again, I knew him from the Plug, the Provo Linux Users Group. This is going way, way back. Before he started Mosey and just shortly after he left California, I guess. Anyway, so I said, look, if I buy you lunch, will you have a look at this idea that we've got? It's based on these open source tools and technologies, right? So we met, and he basically humbled me, kicked my teeth in, said, you don't have a chance. You should not do this. This is a really bad idea, right? So that was probably the best advice that we got, because we did stop doing that. And you guys can, I'm just kind of going to ramble about my experience, right? This is all real world, and you can interrupt me anytime and ask questions. I think the problem is we saw the open source technologies and said it's enough to know those. And it is enough to know those if you just want to tinker or you want to build something fun or cool or creative. But if you're going to start a business on open source technology, it's probably more about business than it is open source, especially now, right? When we first started gathering this open source enthusiasts, the rooms weren't full, right? There were a lot of nerdy dudes with big beards, and you know, they'd have their monitors on carts, you know, and they'd wheel them in and would get, you know, Debian to compile, right? X, whatever. And back then, open source wasn't something you took for granted, but now it is. In fact, I believe if you start a business without open source as one of its core technological pillars, I think you're making a huge mistake, right? Not everybody believes that, but I believe that. I suppose most people believe it. But I'd probably say it's not enough. It's not enough of an advantage, right? I mean, it's leveled the playing field, right? People who know me know I'm a real big fan of FreeSwitch, right? Open source telephony. And we've built amazing things with that. Things that our competitors, they had to lay out $1 million for a comparable Avaya system. And when they scale, they have to lay out that $1 million again and again. You we built our stuff with Ubuntu and Salt and FreeSwitch and Postgres and Angular and did I already say Django, right? These are the technologies we chose. And when we want to build it up, we added a config and say, go. There's a new server we can scale out at no additional cost, right? So I guess I've also thought in that time, 5 years, it was a really hard 5 years, especially the first 4, right? We now, like my brother who, when we started the business, right, my brother and I took the home that I had just bought and the market went up and I got a second, what do they call it, a home equity line of credit or whatever. And I took all of that money that I never put into it and took it out, which, just between me, you, and the camera, whoever's watching this, was probably about $75,000. And my brother took the little, down payment that he had for his home and put it into it, moved into our mother's basement. And, we had these plans about what was going to happen, but the truth is we burnt $200,000 before we made a penny hiring people and learning mistakes, or not learning mistakes, making mistakes, learning things the hard way. But, so what did we do if we didn't do a hosted communication platform? We did consulting and software development. So we have things that we're working on in the background, things that we're building for our own selves, but the truth is we're doing other people's dirty work. We're taking our expertise, we're taking open source technologies, and we're creating the tools that they need to make their businesses go. And so I'm pretty proud of the fact that we don't have a lot of clients, but the clients we have are rather large. Well, they're not large in the HP and the Google sense, right? But they're not insignificant. So we've taken their ideas and we helped them understand what open source technologies are available to help them build that business, and we've done it. And so we have probably 4 or 5 companies out there that are running, and they're profitable and they're growing. They're bigger than we are now, built on an engine, a technological underpinning that's all open source. So I could go on, and probably will, but I'd love to hear questions, comments, thoughts.
What do you wish you'd done different?
I probably wouldn't. So Josh Coates, he's a, what's the word? Mean? I like him.
Smart?
People either love him or hate him. I really, I don't love or hate him, but I have really respected his opinions, and some of the things he's said have really rung true to me. And one of the things he said is don't jump into the, you got to take that leap, right, of faith, but don't do it if there's no water in the pool, right? And I think we did it prematurely. I probably would have, this whole, anyone who's into the startup community, this idea of lean startup is relatively new, at least it wasn't around 5 years ago. We could have tested the idea before we quit our jobs. We could have talked to people who might have been customers and said, hey, would you buy this? But really we were enamored with the technology, right? And we still kind of are. It's hard for us to not get excited about technology. But you have to make sure that just because you love the technology, you don't overlook the fact that there might not be people who are willing to pay for it. So I would have tested the waters first before we bid it off. So I used to be, I still am super entrepreneurial, but I used to be like to everybody, hey, you should start a business, you should start a business, oh yeah, you should start a business. And then after doing it, this is my second one, the first one was way easier, but after these 4 hard years, I say, you have kids, you have a mortgage, maybe you shouldn't start a business, it's really pretty hard to do and to be successful at. Other people may have more natural talent than I have. They may be able to acquire the technical talent, but we worked with what we had. We're doing pretty well. I think we have between 15 and 18 guys, and the number goes up and down. As, we work with people's schooling, and people might pick up a semester and we don't have them for a while, and they come back and we do. We're just down in Provo. Sean hooked us up way back in the day on the Novell campus. So, great question, thank you. Yes?
what are some more, I guess, mistakes you made that we could learn from and maybe avoid? What are ways of avoiding them, or are they mistakes that were just, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to make and have to go through?
So it's always better to learn from somebody else's mistakes, right? So one of the things, so we probably are in a unique spot in that we will take people. So Jordan and I, my brother and I, are fairly technical. Jordan has more business savvy than I do. But we have a love for the technology, and that probably means that we take in people who are also enthusiastic, but maybe not as skilled as they ought to be. And we'll work with them. We're fairly patient in helping them gain that skill set. But I think that's caused us to grow more slowly than we would have liked to. I'm super happy with our team. In fact, if somebody says to me, "You've been working at this for 5 years, never released this, that, or the other," okay, we have a team that's solid. So we've put a lot of emphasis on building the team, but as a result, I think we've gotten to our other goals more slowly. If you have capital, which probably most people don't, right? And you can afford to do it, then you might hire at least 1 or 2 really high-level or senior guys, gals, forgive me, you know what I'm saying, technical people. But you better make sure that you can pay those salaries right. So we had to do a little balancing act where we can hire guys at this level because we can pay for them, but we need them up here. So you incrementally work with them. As a result, we have a really sharp team. We have good back end, good JavaScript, good systems. But it took us a long time to build that team. So there's that. If we had money, we would have done it differently, but we didn't have money.
Did you ever go after investor?
Initially we did, but when we realized that, and so those of you who are in the startup community in 2008, there was the famous RIP, good times, rest in peace. The bottom fell out, but it was too late. We'd already said we're doing this. If we'd started 4 or 5 months later, we probably wouldn't have even started. We would have said, let's wait until this hardship passes. So we weathered the hard times of 2008 where even the most skilled and experienced entrepreneurs weren't getting money, and they're just battening down the hatches. So after weathering that, it was kind of like, hey, if we can come from 1 employee to 5 employees in the very worst of times, then we'll probably take money, but we'll do it after we've released the product we're working on and we have real significant traction, because at this point we're not willing to accept we don't want to give up any part of our company. We've worked too hard for it. At some point we'll take it to accelerate growth, is our hope, if at all. It's also good not to be needy, right? So if you're the best looking girl at prom, then have to. So we want to present ourselves. I know I'm not that good looking, and I didn't actually go to prom, but the analogy was. So cut you off.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
To where you are in release, because that, I'm sure it's changed.
So we have, yes. Where are we in releasing our product?
For your own, not for your dev shop.
A few years from now, everybody in this room is going to know the name Timey. It's going to be the best time tracking and management system out there. But right now, we have an obligation to those people who are keeping the lights on, paying real money to develop real products. The nature of it is we hire this many guys, and we don't always need them, so the back burner is our project. We're getting to the point where we have enough of us and we have enough projects that it's harder and harder to manage. And we only make money when we're pounding on the keyboard. We'd like to make money while we sleep. And being a service company, it's hard to sleep and have people pay for that. So we need to be a product company where people will pay us even if we're not in the office. So we're definitely going for a product-based company, and it's going to be all open source, the very last bit. So thanks for the question. Did you have a comment?
Yeah. What would you consider like a couple of biggest breakthroughs you had, without which you would think that you would not be successful?
So I'd say, let me start with something I consider a real strength, right? I partnered with the right person. Jordan and I are alarmingly similar, right? If you were sitting right here, you'd say, we could wear each other's clothes, right? We have the same view of the world. He shaves less often than I do and likes mushrooms. I think those are the only differences, right? But having a good business partner, I think was, if I didn't have that, we wouldn't have made it, period. So if you partner with somebody for the wrong reasons, or they're not entirely in it, then you can't have a partner, right? I would say, along those same lines, Jordan feels a lot. I kind of look at each one of our clients as like, we have to mother them, and we're really kind, and whatever. And he's like, no, they got to pay their bills or we'll cut them off. You know? So there are two lessons in that. One, have a business partner if you're not really, if you're too generous. You need somebody who's going to hold back the reins. And the second thing is recognize that the services you offer are valuable and be willing to charge for them. I don't think we've charged enough in the past, and it's hard for us to raise our rates, but we recognize that we need to, and it's worth it. We're a good team, right? It's hard to do that. So I guess I would say build something you're willing to charge for. Do something you're willing to charge for. And when I realized that we're worthwhile and we ought to charge more, that was a big thing for me. Because that's all, you know, if you're making it and your margins are $10 and you raise your price $15, well, now your margins are 2.5 times. It's a lot easier to operate.
So was there any particular client that you signed up and you were like, okay, here we go?
I'd say along those same lines, a lesson for us, and this might be really specific to consulting, is it takes just as long. We realized at some point it takes just as long to court a small website gig as it does a giant financial billing system that's worth $10,000 or $100,000. Same amount of effort, same amount of grooming and, you know, meeting and agreeing and arguing and lawyers, same amount. And one, you do that once, and you get a nice client that lasts, you know, a good long time. The other one, the site's done and they're gone. So I would say, if you need me to summarize that, do things, go for the bigger opportunities. They require the same amount of work. But that might not be true in every industry, right? But thank you for the comment. I know it's probably pretty boring, right? But you must be interested in business, or you didn't, or you wouldn't have shown up.
I'll just say something back up what you just said. I came from a company, I was hired by a company, left on my mission, and they eventually started going for only bigger contracts because that's all they could afford.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? But, oh gosh, getting old. I had a thought that slipped. Somebody asked a question and we'll come back.
Do you regret going into services and consulting?
No.
Would you have gone sooner?
No. So let's say that we were successful in raising $1 million initially. I think we probably would have failed. So I'm happy to have dodged the bullet. And I think if we were to get, you know, somebody were to say, here's $2 or $3 million to take this to the next level, I think we'd be prepared to do that now, right? So we really have, through that process, have hardened our team, right? So, yeah. Yes?
What did you do when you had these guys going through lean years and you made them all these promises that one of these days it's not going to be lean, but the next year it was lean again? How did you keep them on your team?
So we're probably unique in that our guys, I think if you asked our guys, are you here at Izeni for the money? I'm certain none of them would say yes. Okay, because we're trying as aggressively as we can to change it, but we're not a top firm in the valley for
A lot of
pay.
openness with them as to
Yeah,
our business.
I mean they're there because they have input on projects that they coming to another company at the level they wouldn't have. They're there because we're flexible. Because there's a personal relationship, and because we're we're totally transparent with what we're trying to accomplish with them.
Now things are moving up, getting a little bit more, probably comfortable is not even the right word.
I'd say it's
How do
approaching
you-
comfort.
What's that?
I'd say it's approaching comfort.
How do you then present that, you know, as running the company and as being the owners of the company, you expect that because you put in all the money, it's not going to all roll downhill? 'Cause- So you've been really open.
So I just have to say that the tone of the conversation may change now that one of our clients has walked in the door. I'm teasing.
How do you know I'm not one?
Because I know them all very personally. That's another thing we do. So I think we, without getting into a lot of details, we throw everything back into the business. So, that initial move into the mother's basement still is in force right now. He's still there after all these years. He's finally going to get his little starter. But we don't, as things get a little frothier, we don't take it all. We've just done a pretty serious recommitment to all of our people. So we said if you learn these specific technologies, we're going to increase your pay.
I win, everybody wins.
Yeah, so it goes back to the value we put in our team. We're not there to grind upon them and to take advantage of them and to live off the margin. But we don't bill for our time as consultants. That probably needs to change. So we are overhead. They recognize that. And if we don't have a team, then there's no engine. So I guess the answer to your question is how, as things improve, do we address maybe a disparity between our earnings and theirs? We don't, because there's not much of a disparity at all.
Well, hopefully there will be one day, right?
Yeah, but our goal is also to have the very best paid team of technical people in the Valley. We have quite a ways to go, but we want everybody to say, if we're doing well, you're doing well. When people come and interview with us and we ask, they may say, oh, you don't pay as much as such and such company. We say, no, we don't. But didn't they just lay you off? We don't want to lay anybody off. And to date, I need to think about this carefully. Yeah, to date we've never lost a technical hire. We lost an office manager. But looking around, this isn't an office manager convention. They're really easy to replace. It wasn't any skin off our back. This doesn't go well. So, but yeah, our technical guys, without exception, 15 or so are all still with us. So, some of them as long as 5 years. So. Comments? Questions? Even absurd
What's your
comments?
name again?
Gabriel.
I have another question.
Please.
A lot of my experience with the cost of labor.
Right.
And so in small business, a lot of times the benefits, talk about pay. Pay is rarely
Yeah.
the most expensive.
So I'm sorry, I'm already making a mistake. I should have been repeating everybody's question for the sake of the audience, but we haven't done that. Talking about additional benefits in terms of an overall compensation package.
The attractiveness of the better employees, the best employees. You talked about how you're training them and grooming them, which I think is very rare and very often. It's just awesome, but how do you deal with the other parts?
We don't. So
They
if somebody
provide-
comes in and they're a bit of a prima donna, there are 1,000 people who will fight after them.
Right. So they need a benefits package. You don't provide that. You just
Well, we provide a benefits package, but it might not be the one that they're looking for.
Okay.
We do the very best we can, and we don't apologize about it. We do what we can, and it's for us. It's if you want stability in a place that you really enjoy working, that's what we offer. If you want to make the very most you can, you better be hopping around and making lateral moves your whole career to get to where you need to be. So, and we're open if people, if people say, look, I could be making more here, maybe you should. Or, well, what do you think? Let's adjust your salary to make sure it's what you want. Yep.
In your opinion,
Up till now, it's all been my opinion. So, whether right or wrong, right?
okay, in your experience then, is the environment more important than the pay? In fact, than anything else?
Oh, no, not than anything else, right? Because if you weren't making a living wage, it doesn't matter how great the experience is, right? I would say it's certainly an important factor, but every individual is going to weigh it differently. Right? So for us, part of the benefit is we're flexible. We do gym memberships. We promote from within. If we have an opportunity to hire somebody or give somebody new opportunity internally, we'll do that. So yeah, but the benefits package is different than a lot of different companies. Yeah.
So why your vision is not towards that you should get acquired by somebody, and a lot of people out there are doing startups because their idea is, okay, Google is going to acquire me someday. Or...
Yeah, so I don't know. My family is all very entrepreneurial, and I probably make a poor employee. I don't want to be. I would like working for the right type of company, but I don't want to be acquired necessarily. If it was the only or the best exit strategy in 5 or 6 years, and it really did recognize the hard work that we put into it, then I might consider it. But it's certainly not something that we're focusing on right now. So the other thing that you have to, the opportunity cost, right? Everybody knows what opportunity cost is. And I can't even say how low my salary was for the first year, second year, third year. So I'm not doing this for money, because if I were, then I'm failing miserably, right? I'm doing it because I really love what I do. I really love the technology. I enjoy my team. I enjoy all those things. And you have to love that. You have to enjoy that, or it's probably a bad thing for you to undertake, right? So, the opportunity cost alone, I could have paid off my house easily. It's just that simple. And so when my employees come and say, hey, I can make this much more somewhere else, I say, hey, I could too. I could make twice that. So what are we going to do? I'm sticking here, because we're building something. That resonates with some people, and other people it doesn't. If it doesn't, it might not be the best fit. So I'm being pretty frank here, right? So let's maybe not put this out on the internet.
What's your next business plan?
Well,
Next model?
So we don't look super far ahead, and I think we're going to be doing this for the next 4 or 5 years anyway. But I think because we love the technology and that's the place we're coming from, it would be really nice to say, this team of people we work well with, they like us, they know that this is going to be a fun and rewarding opportunity. Let's sell the product and go build something else.
Where are the openings in your market?
Openings. What are the opportunities?
So you'll go try something else with this team.
Well, we build technology, right? So we can build anything, right? So I say the sky's the limit, right? It's not like we do concrete, right? Like do driveways or sidewalks or patios. It's
I guess what I'm
technology.
asking.
Yeah, we can do anything.
Perhaps I need to rephrase. You've been in this industry now for some time that none of us have really been in. Where do you see that other people might go in and have an opportunity like what you've had?
So maybe I'm still not understanding the question, but I'll answer it generically by saying I think it's impossible to project too far. One of the cool things about technology is it's when two tectonic plates are coming together, that point where they collide, there's movement, right? And there's friction and there's heat. And I think this is where the opportunities are born. There's going to be like NoSQL, right? I don't jump on the NoSQL bandwagon. I'm pretty stable when it comes to the technologies I choose. But there are going to be new technologies that make certain things possible that weren't possible 5 years ago. And all the opportunities will be around that. And what that is, I don't know. You have to wait 5 years to find out where it's at. And in another 2 and 3 and 5 years, there's going to be more and more. So I'd say I would focus, if I were saying I'm a technologist and I want to go into business, I would say, well, what's new and disruptive now? For example, Asterix. Although it's a little bit old now, back then when we first started, it was a super enabler, right? I know businesses in this valley that are making really good money in their systems have Asterix as a really critical component. And they got into it for the same reasons that we did. It was something where there was change happening. Right? So,
What area of technology would you like to grow in?
Probably big data right now. I hate cloud, big data, right? All of these fancy words that really are marketing more than technology. But if I have to use one, and I do, big data is interesting to me because The clients tend to be bigger. They tend to have larger budgets. They tend to solve more interesting problems. So the further I can get away from a little shopping cart website, the better. So I think big data is kind of like that. I'm also really in love with telephony and voice. I've always kind of had a thing for that. So WebRTC is going to be really exciting. There'll be a lot of change happening around there. So the idea that you can just click a button and talk to anybody in the world, it's all JavaScript and web browser is pretty cool. So there are two. How much time do we have?
About 15 minutes.
15 full minutes. Well, I'll tell you why I'm glad to be here. As an entrepreneur, we literally had days where we'd stay up 3 full days to meet deadlines, right? And one such experience was right before I presented on Twisted. And it's a pretty complicated topic. It's probably going to be hard to get it all packed into one session anyway. And I didn't sleep, and my calendar got off. I don't know if you've ever done that, right? You're like, oh crap, that was 2 days, not one. And so I'm sitting there right at my computer, sweating like you sometimes do when you're just. And I get a call or a text. It was one of my good friends who was at the conference 2 or 3 years ago. And they said, "Where are you?" I was like, "I'm just at the office getting it done." He said, "Well, your session starts in 5 minutes. Everyone's wondering where you're at." Like, is it today? Oh man! So
getting up here today is karma for me.
Yeah, so I'm happy to fill in for some poor guy who's probably like getting his butt kicked right now with some program or something. I don't know. So anyway, it was probably the worst presentation I've ever made, and I'll never make one that poorly again because it's impossible. It was really bad. And I was just like, guys, I'm so sorry. I can't even think. So, and the projector didn't work, and it was all slides. Right?
Can you talk about dealing with business as a tech? That's that part.
So one thing I find I think for us, trust is really important. Because most people don't understand what you're giving them, right? Most of our clients, we don't typically do like a website, right? Where the deliverable is really obvious. Here's your website. Can you click around as an navigate? We'll do a lot more back-end and infrastructure and deployment-oriented stuff. And they don't really appreciate that as much. It's harder to say, look, we just spent a week and you didn't see any change, right? But trust me, now we can just press a button and build out your whole system in 45 minutes. And that's important to you because X, Y, or Z, which has never been a case and might never ever be a case. But if it happens to be the case, you'll be glad we did this. And that gets to be hard. So at some point, developing a good working relationship based on trust is really important. And not abusing that trust because people are giving you their hard-earned money. And they can't. It's always hard for them to quantify, well, what did you give me? And if you say, well, if we think about it, what we did is we rearranged some characters in a text file, but you're going to love it. That's what we do. We write software, and it's a diff somewhere on a Git server, whatever, So I think for me, the business relationship is about trust. If you're talking about non-technical person, non-technical person. Good question. Thank you. Shawnee.
I have another one. You had talked about that you built 2 businesses, and this one has been more difficult than your first business. I'm not aware, not remembering what the first.
So it's super uninteresting.
I'm going to hear
And that might be why it was so easy. I did souvenir manufacturing and importing, and sold it in specific geographic regions in the United States, specifically Northwest. So Washington and Oregon and most of the touristy areas. We had agreements with other people who were doing other regions. And so what would happen is I'd hire people to do my work so that I could develop the database, so that I could work on the front end. And this was, back when mobile phones didn't have browsers, and everyone was trying, we had a system plugged in where you could take your laptop and plug into their phone and do dial-up and process orders. This is my passion. And I just said, hey, to this other company, if you will take this on and let me do your databases, then I'll be happy. That's all I want to do. And so that's what I did, and it was a really easy business. And that's when I was in college, and I had a lot of money. It was easy, but it wasn't very satisfying. So now the businesses we take are very difficult, very taxing, maybe as profitable. They have a lot more potential to be profitable, certainly, but they're intellectually stimulating, and they satisfy that need to do interesting things. So, thanks for asking.
So was that a final that we're about out of time?
I don't know. I was saying hi to Clint.
Yeah.
Oh.
For one of his clients.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clint, get up here and pitch for me, will you?
I said it's amazing. We love him.
So, but we've been through some hard times together. We don't build trivial things. We try to build really cool things that will change industries. And I think something that we've built for this particular client was a big deal. And I wish we could turn that camera off. We could say so many more interesting things. But that's not.
Turn it off from there. I don't care.
We don't know who's going to talk out of class.
We'll let you edit the video.
Anyway, so it's really interesting to be involved in early stage stuff. You have the money comes in and people say, hey, you wouldn't even have technology if you didn't bring the money. And then we say, well, that's fine, but we brought the technology, and now you're getting more money, right? So you're this really important part of this machine that kind of starts to figure out how to go forward. And if those gears aren't properly aligned, then you can't, right? We like working with people with money. And they love working with people with technology. We like doing disruptive things, and I think we've done some of those. So, a lot of fun. Please.
So, once again, I don't want to monopolize, but it sounds like one of the biggest asset is your team. You kind of brought them through, coached them, galvanized this team. And now I'm old, and I forgot what the rest of it
I'm old.
was. But, so it's taking on the biggest challenges and so forth.
Let me say something about our
It
team.
sounds like you're helping other companies. You're sort of an accelerator. Really.
We definitely are. So we have people that have come to us that. So our goal, if we do our job properly, is that at some point we'll be fired because they're successful and they can bring in their own in-house talent. And that's really what Clint is he's in-house talent for Weave. But if we hadn't done our job, they wouldn't have brought him in, right? So we love our clients, but ultimately there needs to be a separation. And that means we were successful, they've become successful. So,
I know what the question was. Do
Sure.
you look at growing your team much at all?
we're probably at about the number that we feel like we can handle. If we do anything, it'll probably be a straight up double, because then we'll have just two kind of distinct units, and I'll take one and my brother Jordan will take the other. But that's probably unlikely. So there gets to be a point where the more people you have, the harder it is to manage, and you start getting diminishing returns on that, I think. So I'm happy to talk business all day long. Shoot, I mean, you guys can ask really specific questions, and I will be as direct as I possibly can. But I recognize I am a poor replacement for what you actually signed up for. So.
Thank you.
What does your team need from you as a manager? Like what?
That's a great question. I think a lot of times it's technical oversight. They don't very often come with a lot of experience. You can only gain experience one way, right? That's doing it. And if they come into a situation where they don't have the experience or the depth to understand what to do, you point them in the right direction, let them go, and I think they appreciate having that backstop. I would love to hire people with more experience than me, but I probably can't afford them.
Do you only hire guys or girls out of school?
Oh no, we'll hire at any level really, but they just have to be able to carry their weight, right? So we actually really have a super simple model. You know, you charge this much, you pay out this much. This is the margin, and you have to survive on that. So sometimes it's really easy to make a hire because you know they're qualified and you can always bill for them. But what you don't know is how frequent. I mean, you can always bill for them if there's a job, but there aren't always jobs, right? So it's not about getting margin during that week. It's sometimes about being able to make that margin last when there aren't billing clients, right? So it's a delicate balancing.
So are what you're doing as an entrepreneur really taking the risk and whatnot for people who wouldn't, for instance,
For people who want what?
wouldn't want to take the risk of being a consultant?
Oh, maybe. I think a lot of them aren't entrepreneurial and wouldn't want, they like at the end of the day being able to check out and not worry about it. Sometimes that's frustrating because like, because our client continues caring about it and we continue caring about it. The employee goes home. You can't fault them for that. So one of our best guys works with Clint, and Clint loves him, right? 3:30 rolls around and there's nothing like left on the docket. He's gone, right? And that's what he wants in life. He doesn't want to have to worry about it. So I think it's not necessarily taking the risk where they're not willing to, but maybe they don't have the inclination to do it anyway, or they don't want to do it. And I think, secondly, a single consultant, unless they're amazing, isn't going to have enough breadth, certainly not enough time to do everything we need to do. So we've got a kind of cool project we're working on now where we have a team of 3 Android guys, a team of 3 iOS guys, a team of 3 back-end guys, and a designer. If you cut their numbers in half, they wouldn't have been able to get the job done as quickly as they needed, the client needed to, right? So sometimes it's just about the strength of the team together, being able to do things that if they went off as individuals, they wouldn't be able to take on. They'd be able to get those smaller websites, small iOS apps, but not big, substantial jobs, the ones that really tend to be interesting, right?
So that's really interesting because that's the hard part in consulting, right? That you can't be an expert in everything. You can't do the business and the technical, the back end, the front end.
So
how do you get to that point?
So unfortunately, I don't get to spend as much time coding as I like to. And probably half of my guys are better at coding than I am at this point because if you don't practice it, you don't keep up on it. My job, what I need to do if I'm going to be successful is take the project management away from me. Take all of the daily chores and tasks that are associated with running a business and take them away from me and have me focus solely on technologies. So I go out and I master solar and I know exactly what it can do for us and for our clients, and I take that and share it with our team. And then I go out and master Cassandra and I know everything about it. I take it and I share it back with our team. That's what I should be doing.
Full-time research and development?
That's so that we can say to our clients, hey, you've got a tricky problem. You haven't been able to find somebody to solve it, but we can because we understand how to use the open source technologies properly. So the answer, I guess, to your question is you can't do it all. And in fact, I want to stop doing it all. I want to focus on what I really love, and that's technologies. I'll always probably work with the clients because I have a soft heart for them, I guess. But they should be calling somebody else at 2 a.m. so I can sleep. Clint's the only one who laughs. Comments? Questions? Please.
Talk about your motivators. I mean, money's obviously not necessarily one of the technologies. Seems to be one.
So I would say technology isn't really a motivator, but it's something I love, right? I would say the motivation for me is building something. So my dad, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, is an entrepreneur. And he recognized in me really early, let me see how far I can go into this story. Not very far. Recognized that I liked to build things so I could kind of stand back and go, whoa, that's a sandcastle, you know. These guys are playing in sand, this is a sandcastle. We build that, you know. And he said, so he builds pools. In fact, the reason we moved to Utah Valley is 17 weeks. He was the general contractor there, his last gig. But he said when we lived in Chicago, it was small jobs, right? And you'd dig this hole and you'd have the tractor in there pulling out these mounds of dirt and grass, and just tore up this beautiful backyard, and it looks like crap, right? Then you wire it with this really gnarly looking rebar, and it's nothing beautiful to look at. And you spray in your gunite. Don't mind me. Clearly not a professional presenter. You spray this gunite and it looks like even worse. It's this dark, muddy hole, right? That's going to be a pool one day. He's going to come back. I don't know how to turn off my radar. And then he says, but the next day you come in and you have the plaster, right? It's the white finish. And he says when you plaster that thing, and at the end of that, like 3 hours of plastering, you stand back and you're like, whoa, that's a pool. So you do all of this work, but at the end of the day, you don't get that reward until you can look at that thing you created and you can say, we did that. And for me, that's my motivation, right? If it were money, I would accept job offers. I would go do that, right? But I want to be able to say, in terms of the products we build for our clients, and in the terms of our actual business, right? It's something that we've built too. So the satisfaction of creating, I'd say, that would be my #1 motivation. Excellent question. Looks like we're out on time unless somebody's been holding a question. Thanks, guys.